Okay, welcome back, everyone. We had a relaxing, restful, if you wish, spring break. We are now ready to enter the last lap of the term, or I would call it the last lap. We're going to finish up written communication. Well, we have part 4 today, this week, part 5 next week, and then we'll get into the verbal. But let's talk about part 4. Actually, let's take a look at see what's going on the week at a glance. Here we go. So this is posted in the announcement section, Blackboard. As you can see, the part 3 developing reports proposal assignments were due. If you have not gotten those in, please do so, and I will be looking at those and getting points in here in the next day or two. You are now watching the video for number 2 here, so you don't have to worry about that. But number 3, we're actually going to move into, as I mentioned, an area of business writing that would be very important for you, particularly starting even today, much less before you get into a career. And it has to do with writing for employment assignments or employment. Now, sorry about the spelling error in employment, but I will correct that. Again, writing for employment takes a couple of documents, if you wish, that you need to create. We'll talk about those specifically. Now, this assignment begins, the first, and is due by April 7th. And so go ahead and get that in. So let me stop the share here. And let's put up the fact sheet for this week's activities. And here we go. Again, this is ready for employment. Now, this is something you can start today. It's just not something you have to wait until you get your degrees or certificates or whatever the case might be. It is something that, we all can start using immediately. Now, there's 2 major components of business writing for employment. The first is what we call a cover letter. The second is our resume. Now, I'm sure you all know what a resume is. I'm going to guess that probably you all have a resume. Possibly you have been instructed or been advised on how to create a resume. That's great. Something that a lot of people don't have or really have a lot of knowledge of is what we call the cover letter. Now, let me give you some of my experiences here. Again, I've been in the business world for about 50 years. I hate to say it, but yeah, 50 years. I've read a lot of resumes. I've hired a lot of people, had to release a lot of people. I've seen some great resumes, and I've seen some not good ones. One thing that I think is vitally important that you provide with your resume is a cover letter. Why? Well, the cover letter is basically a written way for you to introduce yourself. Okay? Strictly that. The cover letter basically should say, excuse me, who you are, maybe what you're looking for if you are applying for a specific position that's available, mention it, give details about the position that may be required, such as a job posting number if needed. Also, it should briefly, and again, briefly mention what are you bringing to the table? What is your education? What is your related work experience? And then again, you should then in the close or before the closing suggest that or mention that a copy of your resume is enclosed or attached. Depends on if you're mailing it, you'll probably staple it. If it's enclosed, it may be part of a link. But that it is there that will provide the reader, the potential employer, greater detail on yourself. So again, yes, the cover letter is vitally important. Now, if you ever see an online job request and says submit your resume to, include the cover letter. Not including it could hamper your chances. Including it will never hurt your chances. So definitely include a cover letter, very brief. And I think Objective 26 will help you out here quite a bit. If you want further advice on a cover letter, let me know. Send me an email. let's move on to a resume now. The resume uh, basically is a snapshot, an outline of, again, like I said, what do you bring to the table? What are your strengths? What are your skills? You know, what is it that makes you better, potentially better than the other candidates? And that's the name of the game. Your cover letter and your resume won't get you a job, but they will get you a big prize, which is an interview, because that's what you want. So if you provide in a well-written, well-formatted resume your strengths and your skills, that would be extremely valuable. Now, this is just information that I'm sure the rest of these objectives will cover, but there's certain things you should include. First of all, and I'll start at the top and work my way down. You should have your name, full name. You should have, I would even put down your street address, mailing address. You're seeing it less and less because everything's electronic, but no, I would still put it down. Your phone number, I would suggest that you use a cell phone, but if you don't have this, a landline will be just fine. Email address, okay? Morton, Google, Gmail, whatever it might be, definitely an email address. Now, some of you may have accounts with like LinkedIn or Indeed. By all means, put those down. If you are not associated with LinkedIn or Indeed, I highly recommend that you do. And if you'd like to know more information on those two, let me know, and I will be glad to provide it. Actually, I think in this playlist 9, I do have some links for it. I urge you to get an account and register for those and keep them up to date. Don't put it once and 5 years later go, oh, this is really old. Every time something new happens in your education or your work experience, put it down, change it. So that's pretty much the top. Now, should you put down social media? No, don't put that down. Don't put down your Facebook, Facebook site or anything like that. First of all, it would be more of a harm than a benefit, so don't do that. Some people actually will create a professional website of themselves. If you have such an animal, such a thing, put it down. Good stuff. Alrighty, so that definitely needs to be the top. That's all of your contact information. The next thing you're going to have is what we call the objective. Now, the objective serves two functions. First of all, it will suggest what you are looking for, but it also will suggest what you can do for the potential employer. Far too often, I've read objectives that state I am looking for something like I am looking for a career opportunity that will help me enhance my education and work experience. Okay, that could certainly be part of it, but if you heard that, it's all about the potential employee. It doesn't say anything about the company, what you can bring or do for the company. So I would make sure that your objective includes, yes, you can talk about what you will get, but also what you will do for the company. That is vitally important. So be careful of that. Another thought about objectives. Do not find one objective and think this is great and reuse it over and over and over. Don't do that. It should be unique every time you send out the resume. Now, if there's excuse me, specific companies, you have to write the objective at least mentioning the name of the company. Okay, that is an important factor. If it looks like it's a canned, objective that you reuse over and over and over, that's really it's not positive for you. So always at least mention the name of the company in the objective somewhere, somehow. That would be helpful. So, which means you have to update your resume every time you send it out. But it's a small price to pay. All right, next thing you're going to put down is obviously your education. Why obviously? Well, frankly, I believe probably at your age, you don't have a lot of related experience, professional experience in the career that you want to get into. In my particular case, my work experience comes first because I have a lot more years of work experience than education. It's time, okay? I've got the education, but the more valuable stuff is the work experience in my case. So I would suggest, certainly for you, start with your education. Morton College, I would put down obviously the city state. I would put down if you are getting a certificate, what that is, when you get it. If you are going to get the degree, what that is, when you're going to get it, or if you do have it. If you're going to be in a transfer program, put that down. And if you know where you're going to transfer to, like UIC, put that down. Put down the date expected. Other things you might want to put down is if you have a major, what might that be? A minor, what that might be? A concentration, what might that be? These are valuable attributes that an employer wants to know. Now, a question I've had raised before, should I put down my high school? Well, I would say, why not? If you are just starting out in the real world, so to speak, you don't have a whole heck of a lot of, shall we say, trump cards. So put down your high school. There's nothing wrong with putting down a high school. Now, after a couple of years of employment, I pull the high school off. You don't need it anymore. But for now, I put it down. If you happen to be part of an elite high school, and I mean more of a selective high school, or one that you have to actually apply to, it's not like the neighborhood high school. Certainly will be a potential valuable attribute for you. Other things you would put down are if you played in any active sports, varsity sports, were you in clubs, were you on certain types of teams, because that type of information is also very useful and valuable to businesses. Why? Well, businesses nowadays, they actually, they work based on teamwork. Back in the day when I first started, it was a lot of independent type of stuff. But nowadays, they realize that teams do things far better than individuals. So if you can show that you have been involved with teams or a team, that will be a benefit to you. What about grade point average? I've had a lot of students say, well, should I put my grade point average down? And my recommendation is if you have a 4.0, all A's out of a 4.0 system, put it down. If you don't have a 4.0, don't put it down. Okay, even if you have like a very high 3.89, which is all A's and one B, that's outstanding. But if it came down to two people with identical qualifications and you had the 3.89, the other person had the 4.0, they'll get the job. Leave them guessing. If they really want to know that, they will ask that in an interview. You don't want to cut yourself off before the interview. You want to get to an interview. What about work experience? Well, if you're receiving a paycheck, put it down. I mean, in other words, you're getting money and you're on either a full-time, part-time business or a full-time position, put it down, okay? It doesn't matter what it is. You're flipping burgers at Bob's Burgers and Fries, put it down. Because it does suggest that you, first of all, are trainable, which means they can modify you to do things. It also means that you're dependable. It means you get there on time and you work a full day and then you leave and then you show up the next day, whatever the case might be. Put it down. Now, what if you don't have what we would call a paycheck job? Now, what am I talking about here? Babysitting. Okay, sounds good, but let's talk about babysitting, shoveling snow in the winter, cutting lawns in the summer, delivering newspapers. I don't know. You come up with without deliveries for grocery stores, whatever. Put those down. And the reason why you should put those down is because they do show that you are outgoing and that you are dedicated, that you do want to be motivated to do something. So don't worry about it, put it down. And someone said, well, babysitting? Oh, well, think about it. Why not babysitting? When my children were young and we needed a babysitter, I didn't just grab anybody and say, hey, you, cross the street, come here, watch my kids. No, we vetted, we checked out the people that babysat our children because they're, well, basically our prized possessions. And I'm not going to leave my prized possessions with anybody. So again, that's a very important thing. Put it down. Talk about references. It does talk about references down here. My suggestion on your resume, put down references, upon request. Okay. And why is that? Well, first of all, I don't know anybody who's ever put down their biggest enemy as a reference. No one's going to, you're not going to put down somebody who's going to say, oh my God, this person's terrible. They're not going to do that. They're only going to put down the best of the best that will talk about them. Now, there's two types of references. You got your personal reference and you got your more professional references. Your personal references would be your grandmother. Oh, yes. Little Tony, oh, yes, he's the greatest grandson I ever had. Great, okay. Who cares? Professional references might be a past employer. Might be one of your college or high school instructors. But if you're going to have one of those two, make sure you let them know that you want to do that, okay? So people who know that you can work, how well you work, that you're dedicated, that you can move things ahead and whatnot. So I would not put them in your resume again, references upon request. Now, if they do want references with your resume, it's a different story. And objective 31 will help, objective 30 will certainly help you out here, requesting letters of references. That will be valuable. What about a follow-up? Well, I'll tell you what. Usually they will give you an idea of when the opportunity to submit resumes will end. Maybe it's April 15th, something like that. That's fine. I would say, wait a few days after the fact, and then why not call them and ask, just checking, you got my resume, you got my cover letter, I wonder if you got any questions. That shows initiative. And, they'll either say yes or no. No one's going to say, don't call me. Unless they say don't call, then no call. Another thing you might want to do is in your cover letter, since you're mailing it, give them 10 days, 2 weeks. And then the closing say, I will call you. Make sure you do call on a certain date, 2 weeks after the date of your letter, and give them a time. I will call you on April 20th at 2 p.m. to see if there's any questions that you may have. Again, it shows initiative. It's also being forefront. So that's also a positive thing. So keep those things in mind. But again, follow-up messages, I would certainly, objective 31 will help you. Now, let's just say another thing that I don't think it does cover is you had an interview. Okay. Should you send a thank you? Absolutely. Should it be an email? Absolutely not. Everybody and their brother is going to send an email. Oh, thank you for the wonderful interview, blah, blah, blah. No, don't do that. You go to Walgreens or someplace, you get those little cards this big. You say thank you on the front and open up, it's blank. Oh my gosh. What you need to do is buy some of those, write a little note, dear Mr. Smith, or whoever it was that you talked to, thank you for the interview. And then mention something that you think was unique that you two or 3 or 5, whoever it was were there, found relevant. Mention that. It was good to talk about the corporate strategy at ABC Company. Thanks again, and I look forward to talking to you soon. Bingo. Mail it. I would do that the exact same day of the interview. My guess is they'll probably give it a day or two. They're going to look at their inbox their email and go, oh, another thank you, delete, 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 delete. But if they get something in the mail, they're going to open it up and read it. And guess what? Your name just went to the top of the list, assuming everything was good. They're not going to forget you. They're going to go, oh, this is from Tom. Okay. A lot of them, you know what they do with thank yous? They also put them on pin boards and put them up on a wall. It's like a little trophy. Keep that in mind. It will help you. It won't certainly hurt, but it will definitely help you. Oh my gosh, an objective 32, accepting or rejecting job offers. If you are lucky to have more than one, this objective will help you out. A question, a suggestion here. Money is not everything. Been there, done that. So this objective will certainly help you out figuring out what is your priorities. Is it money? Is it location? You know, is it hours? Is it what? There's a lot of variables you have to think about. Okay. Anyways, so that is, I'm sorry, about all I really have to say. Probably a lot more than I wanted to say, probably a lot more than you wanted to hear, but maybe you got something valuable out of that. Anywho, I guess that's all I have for now. As usual, if you have any questions, by all means, shoot me an email and I will be glad to help you out. Anyways, have a good week. Talk to you next week.